What's happening, everybody? Welcome into the Wilbur and Gold Show. I am your host, Will Dalton, a.k.a. Wilbur and Gold, and it is another Friday episode. I believe this is episode 44 of the Wilbur and Gold Show. Glad to have you in as we get the weekend started. Got a lot to get into today. Reacting to, this is our first show since last Friday, so our first show since the Super Bowl. The Rams are the champs. Harden has been traded to the Sixers, Ben Simmons to the Nets. There's some new news about the Kenobi show that we're going to be getting into here. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about here on a Friday. I'm caffeinated, just made me another thing of espresso. So I'm probably going to be jittering, just having a little snack, so I'm energized. So let's get into it. So I'm just going to start off with the obvious, since that's the bulk of what we talked about last Friday, and that is the Super Bowl. It turned out about how I thought it would. I was hoping the Bengals would win it. I had a weird feeling in my gut that they might, but let me actually take that back so I can be accurate or more accurate. So. My prediction for if the Rams were to win it, my prediction if the Rams were to win it was that the X factor was ultimately, because we knew Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, even though they didn't get a ton of action in the Super Bowl specifically, they had a couple of moments. Obviously, that big one, or actually, I think it was T. Higgins, that big touchdown to start the second half. So Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow didn't hook up a ton in the Super Bowl, but they had a few moments. And then obviously we knew on the Rams side, I think Matt Stafford and OBJ, which is how we started it. OBJ got the opening touchdown for the Rams. Unfortunately, again, got hurt. Looks like he tore the same ACL that he had prior. And then obviously Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp did their thing the rest of the way that closed it out. But I felt that the X factor was going to be, if the Rams won it, the X factor was ultimately going to be the combo of Aaron Donald and Von Miller going up against a very bad Bengals offensive line. And that's really what it ended up being. So that part of it kind of went about how I thought. And maybe this was just because I wanted to see it. There was a part of me that still felt that the Bengals would get it done. And they damn near did. I mean, when that second half explosion started for the Bengals, I'm like, all right, Joe Shiesty, welcome to the second half. So there they went, and there we went. So, but obviously it was a great Super Bowl, great game. The halftime show was epic. Now I'll say this, and I told my buddy this after it happened. The halftime show left me wanting more. It left me wanting more, but in a good way. Not I wanted more as in it didn't measure up to what I wanted. It measured up to what I wanted, but I wanted more of it because it was just so good. The only thing that I did not get in that halftime show that I wanted and that I thought there was a chance we could see was the Tupac hologram. So if you remember several years ago at Coachella, I don't know. So I think it was Snoop and maybe Dre was there too. I don't remember. But I know Snoop was performing at Coachella, and they brought out this incredible Tupac hologram. And obviously now, and we know this very well as Star Wars fans, those of us that are Star Wars fans here, in the age of CGI, like, you can literally bring anybody back to life. Spartan Barton, my guy, what's up? In the house, he said that was the best halftime show since Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson. I did hear some people compare that halftime show to that one. I heard some people compare it to Prince when he did it, Beyonce in 2013. That was one of my favorites when she did it down in New Orleans in 2013. And then, ironically enough, the Super Bowl that the Panthers were in when Bruno Mars and Coldplay and Beyonce was there, I think it was Coldplay was the headliner for that one with Bruno Mars, and then Beyonce showed up. That was a good one too. Wish the outcome for the Panthers would have been just as good, but that's a conversation for another day. But I was hoping that we would get the Tupac hologram that they brought to Coachella. Obviously a different one this time, but same concept. I mean, if you haven't seen it and you're a fan of Pac or just that 90s hip-hop era, you got to go look at that. It was just it was incredible. But, in the era of CGI now, I mean, you can bring anybody back to life, essentially. We saw Rogue One do it with Tarkin. We saw, we've seen a de-aged Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man. We've seen, obviously, a younger Luke Skywalker most recently in Boba Fett and the finale of The Mandalorian. And a young Princess Leia in the end of Rogue One. So you can bring anybody back to life or alter anybody's appearance now with CGI. And so obviously, we saw that, with the Tupac hologram, which were just incredible. But I wish we would have gotten that for the halftime show. But regardless, I mean, it was a great show. So the one thing that I will say about the Super Bowl that I'm curious about, now I haven't gone back to see if there's other angles of this, but so when the Rams went down, took the lead late with about 1:25 or so to go, I looked at my buddy and I said, here comes Joe Shiesty, 1:25 to go. We still got time here. I'm telling you, man, if anybody could have done it, Joe Burrow could have done it. Now, granted, his offensive, again, and that's where the X factor, specifically Aaron Donald, that I thought would be an X factor for the Rams, really showed up, was on that last drive. I know that final play, Aaron Donald sacked him. I don't know I think he got him another play prior to that. So that was a tough one for the Bengals to swallow. But I will say this. Those of you that paid close attention on that final play, 4th down, Aaron Donald sacks Joe Burrow, kind of spins him to the ground. Well, he spun around and tried to throw it, Joe Burrow did. And he got a decent throw off towards Perrine, one of his Bengals receivers. And I don't know, and I still need to go back and look at some other angles of this. And I know I was reading in some comment sections that others were like, I don't know if that's just the angle or what. But if you look at that throw that Joe Burrow got off as he was being thrown to the ground, it looked like Perrine could have caught that pass, which was well beyond the 1st down marker, and they're still alive. So, again, if you had Spartan Barton, I think you're in here. If you've seen it from a different angle, and it was just that one angle that was on TV that made it look like the ball was closer to him, and it really wasn't, let me know, or somebody else. But I'm telling you right now, I'm going to do I'm going to go back and see if I can find some other angles of it. I'm pretty sure Perrine could have caught that ball. And if that was the case, I don't know if he just did not think Burrow was going to get a pass off at all, or if that pass he just gave up on the play. I mean, he sold it to where it didn't look like he acted like it never had a chance. But I'm telling you right now, that ball looked like it was there to be caught for a 1st down. So, which that alone, all right, let's just pretend he did catch it for a 1st down, and then the Bengals go down. They don't convert. They don't get in field goal range, which I don't know if a field goal would have done it anyway. Let's just pretend the Bengals went down and didn't convert. Low key, like that would have been impressive enough for Joe Burrow to get that pass off, which he did, with Aaron Donald throwing him to the ground for a sack to seal the game, essentially, seal the Super Bowl. And he gets that throw off for a 1st down to at least give them another shot. That alone would have been impressive enough. But I'm telling you, go back and look at that play. I think Perrine could have caught that ball. Let's see here. So here's something that's interesting. And this kind of fits in with one of the things I was going to briefly get into today. So this quick turnaround for Joe Burrow and the Bengals to go from literally one of the worst teams in the league, Joe Burrow tearing his ACL last year, not even making it all the way through the season because of that bad Bengals offensive line again. I do not want to see that be a Panthers type situation for him, but again, conversation for another day. that whole Bengals situation, the fact that they drafted him and 2 years later they went from one of the worst teams in the league to the Super Bowl and damn near winning the Super Bowl, is why I do not have as much sympathy for the Daniel Jones and New York Giants or Baker Mayfield and Cleveland Browns situations. Or hell, we could even go, and again, it's still early, but and it could be this way for Zach Wilson and the Jets. I don't have as much sympathy for it taking so long to figure it the fuck out. And I'm specifically thinking about Daniel Jones and the Giants here because Daniel Jones has weapons. Now, I get it. They lost a lot of their receiving core, and a lot of people got hurt this year. I get that. But the fact that somebody like Joe Burrow can turn the Bengals into what they became this year that fast it should – and maybe that was an anomaly. I don't know. But it just shows that it can be done. And so when you're 4 years into a Daniel Jones, at least I think he's 4 years in or whatever, however many it is, and you're like, oh, it's still early for him? I guess technically yes, but at the same time, like, I feel like the window for a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback to come in and make a difference when they're a lottery pick or supposed to be, I feel like the window is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and the patience of how long it's supposed to take, especially when you have weapons, as the Giants did to start last season and have in seasons past. Like, I don't know. I feel like the more you see things like Joe Burrow and the Bengals or Patrick Mahomes, which the Chiefs already had the weapons, so I don't want to use Patrick Mahomes as an example. But, hell, you could argue Justin Herbert and the Chargers are headed kind of in a similar track as the Bengals because, even though they just came up short of the playoffs this year, you're seeing that the impact that Justin Herbert is having on the Chargers already. So the fact that something isn't adding up with Daniel Jones and the Giants, or who else did I say? And I like Baker Mayfield, but and again, like, he was hurt a majority of this year, but just the fact that it is taking this, like, you've had that amount of weapons over there in Cleveland, and it's not really amassing to anything. And then you go look at a Joe Burrow and a Bengals situation, which you could argue they had, again, one of the worst teams in the league a couple of years ago. They draft Joe Burrow, and now they just came shy of winning the Super Bowl. It just goes to show that, like, this whole narrative of, oh, it's a young quarterback, oh, you got to give him time. Yeah, maybe a couple of years, but once you start to hit year, depending on your situation, like depending on the weapons you have, once you hit about year 3 or 4, if you are not seeing some type of progress, a.k.a. the Chargers, they didn't make the playoffs this year. They came up just a hair short, but you're seeing the impact that Justin Herbert is having on the Chargers already within 2 years. It really makes you look at Daniel Jones and the Giants. And that's just, I know I keep going to that one, but it's just the one that sticks out to me. It's like, all right, something isn't adding up here. You might not be as good as we thought you were. I don't know. So, and I think Baker Mayfield has had some bad breaks, but the Browns have some things to start thinking about too. And according to reports here recently, which is why it was on my mind, I guess, like, they're already thinking about things. Carson Wentz is probably going to be on the market. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be on the market. So the Browns might have to think about potentially upgrading at quarterback. Like, I remember I was always told as a kid, NFL equals not for long. And, it's all about what have you done for me lately. And I get it with Baker being injured this year, but at the same time, it's like, you wonder with those weapons in years prior, like, you wonder how much is that going to matter to the upper management of the organization. So I don't know, just something to think about. It just, when you look at Joe Burrow and the Bengals, or the impact that Justin Herbert's already having on the Chargers, you can see what this could be. Or what it maybe is supposed to be. I don't know. It's just definitely food for thought. So let's actually move on to some Star Wars news that came out the other day. So obviously we got a new poster for the Kenobi show, literally the day after, or maybe even later. I think maybe later in the day on the finale of the Boba Fett show last Wednesday. We got a release date for Kenobi. We got a new poster for Kenobi. It's Kenobi in the desert. It appears that he's holding Anakin's lightsaber as he's walking through the desert there. And I believe, May 4th, may the 4th be with you, Star Wars Day, is the day that it is going to drop. Let me just confirm that because I haven't looked at it in a minute. Yeah. So it's going to, May 25th. May 25th is when it drops. So, and I thought it would have been kind of cool because Revenge of the Sith back in 2005, it dropped on May 19th. So I thought it would have been kind of cool to drop it on that same day. But actually, some other news that I wasn't originally thinking about. John Williams is going to be back to compose for Kenobi. He's got a brand new theme, supposedly, for the Kenobi show that we'll be checking out. But the main piece of information that I wanted to kind of get into here was about Vader. So obviously Hayden Christensen's coming back to reprise Vader, Anakin, Vader behind the mask. Guy who played Anakin in the prequels, obviously. If you're a big Star Wars person, you know that already. My favorite character. So this new piece of information out about the Kenobi show and how Vader is going to be portrayed in Kenobi. It's come out that essentially that hallway scene at the end of Rogue One where Vader just fucks up the joint. It's come out now that Vader is essentially going to be that hallway scene at the end of Rogue One. He's going to be that, only 10 times angrier, 10 times more on the fucking warpath, probably for Kenobi, because somehow or some way he's going to learn that Kenobi's out there somewhere, which I assume he probably already knows that just because he got his shit wrecked at the end of Revenge of the Sith. But Vader in that hallway scene in Rogue One, as vicious, and that was one of the things that when I saw Rogue One in theaters for the first time, that, like, I could not get back to the theater soon enough to see Rogue One again just so I could see that hallway scene of Vader just chopping up everything. Like, it gave, when I tell you, like, that scene just gave me goosebumps. Like, because obviously Rogue One was a great movie. It's, in my opinion, it became one of the best Star Wars movies ever made. Like, it was that good. But we had, and obviously Vader had, some scenes throughout the movies, or throughout the movie. But when I got to hear that Sith, Vader's lightsaber ignition for the first time at the end of Rogue One in that hallway scene, it just gave me goosebumps, and just watching it unfold. And it was just so vicious because we did not really get to see Vader quite like that. We didn't get to see Vader quite like that in the original trilogy. Obviously we saw Vader, force choking people and other things like that, and how vicious he could be. But we didn't see how vicious he really supposedly was, like, according to legends and according to comic. Like, if you go read the Vader comic books or Star Wars comics that have Vader in it, like, you will see how vicious Vader actually fucking was and how powerful he actually was. And we really never see that in the movies to that extent until that hallway scene in Rogue One. And it's just like, all right, that's Vader in all his glory. And so now, the fact that in the Kenobi show, we're going to get that version of Vader only 10 times up a notch, 10 times angrier. I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited about it. Spartan Bar, he's last thing Vader said to Kenobi was, "I hate you." That's true. Does Kenobi know? This is actually a really good question. does Kenobi know that Anakin survived on the volcano? So if I had to guess, and maybe we know this already through some of the comics or something like that, I'm going to guess that he does. The Kenobi show, it's going to take, obviously we know that Kenobi knew about it by episode 4 because he's talking about Vader with Luke in that scene at Kenobi's house. But this show is going to take place around 10 years or so, about 10 years or so after the events of Revenge of the Sith. So at this point, I would like to think, if I had to guess, Kenobi knows that he survived because obviously Vader is, is over the Empire, him and Palpatine. They're the heads of the Empire that's taking over the whole damn galaxy. And so I would imagine that Kenobi sees that and hears about that. And so he knows that Anakin survived. So, I would imagine he does know if I had to guess. But great question, though. Absolutely great question because, the show is a different time point in the Star Wars story than episode 4 a little earlier. But I think he knows. Let's see here. Oh man. Let me finish up here because this is pretty much the bulk of what I wanted to get into today. Let's actually finish up with this trade between the Sixers and the Nets. James Harden going to Philly, Ben Simmons and Seth Curry, and I believe Andre Drummond and somebody else, or a first round of pick of some kind, something else coming to Brooklyn. So the ultimate question right now is who won the trade. Some people are making the trade for the Nets. Most people, from what I hear, are making the trade, are making the point that the Sixers won the trade, and that's where I tend to go because listen. So I'm gonna go back and see if I can find the episode where I was talking about this because I'm curious verbatim what I said about it. But from the very beginning, when Katie and Kyrie teamed up in Brooklyn, and then when you added James Harden into the mix, listen, they're 3 of the all-time greatest talents the NBA has ever seen. But on paper, it was the best big 3 we maybe have ever seen, on paper. But I just never there was parts of me that thought, all right, that could work. But I never bought into the Nets completely. And in my gut, I always felt this is not going to work the way a lot of people are hyping it up that it's going to work. Because whether it's because of injuries, whether it is because of just drama and bullshit going on with one of them or all of them off the court, some type of drama, whether that's whatever it is, whatever said drama may be, all 3 of them have a fair amount. Or just chemistry with each other. Because we have seen all 3 of them at many points or most of their points in their career have chemistry issues with their teams. Kyrie had it in the end with LeBron in Cleveland. It never stuck with Boston. And now we see what's going on with him with the Nets and, the whole unvaxxed thing. And I'm not going to get into all that. But just the fact that it is an off-the-court issue that is preventing him from playing the whole time. He's essentially a part-time player, which is never going to work, in my opinion anyway. And then we've seen James Harden basically quit his way out of 2 teams already, first being Houston last year, and now to a little bit lesser extent, but still same principle in Brooklyn. He's been an all-star level player this year. He's not been the superstar level James Harden that we're used to. He's kind of fallen out of shape. Some would argue that is because he wanted to get out of Houston, out of Brooklyn, and so I don't know if that's why or if he's just not putting as much into it. I don't know. But the point is, he's got things going on off the court, or has had things going on off the court, that it just makes it very difficult. You know, you would argue that of the three, Kevin Durant has had the least things off the court because he just wants to hoop. He just wants to ball. You know, for all his toxicity that he might have off the court, he health is the biggest issue for him, and to me, leadership is the biggest issue for him. And to that point, bringing up leadership, all three of them have, even though they are great all-time talents, they've never been like leaders on a championship team. Kevin Durant was the best player on that Warriors team. Steph was the leader. KD was the best player, of course, on the Thunder, but he wasn't a great leader, in my opinion. And, you know, same deal here in Brooklyn, in my opinion. So, all those things taken into account, I just thought they were going to have some great moments. They did have a few good, I mean, they only played like 16, 17, or 18 games together total. They had a great, I think they went 16-3 or however, or whatever it was, the amount of games they played together. But it just never, I never bought in. Whether it, be it health played a large issue over that whole run that they had. But so did chemistry. Just all of it combined. Like, I never completely bought in. Which is why, now that you're bringing Ben Simmons to the mix, we don't know what you're going to get with him. Because the last time he played for the Sixers, he was all up in his head and he wasn't very good. He's a good defender and he's a good passer, but we don't know if he got his yips or head issues. And I don't fault him for it because I understand it. I've had those when I wasn't, when I was a baseball player. Like, I had plenty of that. Like, I get it. Like, it's very difficult to deal with. So I have empathy for him for that. I'm not gonna bash him like a lot of people do. But at the same time, like, to that point, like, 100% being real, like, you don't know what you're getting with Ben Simmons because we haven't seen him play in so long. You don't know what his mental state is going to be. You don't know. You don't know. And everything is happy-go-lucky in the beginning when it's all getting started, because we've seen Ben Simmons and KD getting along very well and, seen Ben Simmons all happy and giddy at practice for the Nets. But it's like, it's always that way in the beginning. But what's it going to look like once we really kind of get into this thing and he starts playing? So, to me, it's a no-brainer that the Sixers won this trade. I think they've got the better situation. I think the Nets, like, if I'm KD, I'm thinking about potentially getting out of Brooklyn somehow. Because Kyrie's a part-time player, and we don't know how that's going to play out. We don't know what we're getting in Ben Simmons. And it's just like, if I didn't think it was going to work between KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, be it for health, off-field, or off-court reasons, or just some type of bullshit drama or bad chemistry between the three, and no leadership, no one good leader, why the hell do you think it's going to work with KD, Kyrie, and now Ben Simmons? All right, here's a better way to do this. Who's better, James Harden or Ben Simmons? All right, then. James Harden. So, if it didn't work with KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, do you really think it's going to work with KD, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons? Because at least James Harden was a good scorer for the most part. He's had his off moments this year, but for the most part. Ben Simmons, as of right now, you don't know what type of offensive play you're getting right now. You're going to get a good defender. You're going to get a good distributor of the basketball, but you don't know what you're getting in the offensive production category right now. You really don't. So I apologize if I'm repeating myself a lot on this. It's very clear, like, Sixers won this trade. Especially like in the immediate, like in the short term, the Sixers absolutely won this trade. I'm not saying that the Nets absolutely are not going to work, but if they do, it's going to take a little time to figure this shit out. And I'm not so sure that's going to help anyway. So that is it for today. Appreciate Spartan Barton for hanging in there, having some comments as always. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday and a great start to your weekend. Wilbur and Gold Show, episode 44 in the books. My name is Will Dalton, a.k.a. Wilbur and Gold. We'll see you next time.